He gives to Jordan. Jordan to the circle, puts the shot in the air. Good! The game's over, and the Bulls have won.
We know that Michael Jordan is widely considered the greatest of all time, the GOAT, and you're gonna have to look at his career to see why he's better than anyone else who's ever stepped onto an NBA court. But he wasn't the GOAT right away when he started playing in the NBA. It was actually in 1988 when he first showed signs that he was the greatest of all time. But what exactly happened in 1988? Well, that's a story that dates back to the start of his NBA career. Even before Michael Jordan stepped onto an NBA court, he was already special. As a college freshman for North Carolina, he hit a game-winning jump shot that gave his team the 1982 national championship over a powerful Georgetown team that had Patrick Ewing. It didn't take time for him to establish himself as one of the best players college basketball had to offer. Jordan went on to average around 20 points the next 2 seasons with UNC, showing off his athleticism, skills, and competitive nature. He did things on the court no one had ever seen because he could literally float in the air and finish the toughest baskets. Jordan was an icon well before he got drafted into the NBA. And not a lot of college players actually get shoe sponsorship deals before they turn pro. But that's simply how iconic Jordan was. Apparently, though, he wasn't iconic enough to go first overall in the 1984 draft. That honor went to Hakeem Olajuwon, one of the greatest big men the world had ever seen. The decision made sense because basketball at that time was still all about the big men.
8 to shoot. Sampson low, the hook shot. Didn't get it. Olajuwon, man, what a...
Still, the Portland Trailblazers made a mistake with the 2nd overall pick when they thought Sam Bowie was going to be better than MJ. Spoiler alert, he wasn't even a fraction of the player MJ turned into. But that only set the table up for the Chicago Bulls to draft MJ with the 3rd overall pick. Since that 1984 draft, the league was never the same. Jordan was an instant sensation as a rookie. It wasn't just about the Nike shoe deal that sparked an entire generation of shoe fanatics. Instead, it was more of his incredible magnetism as a player. Jordan had the kind of style and flair that combined Julius Erving, George Gervin, and Adrian Dantley into one complete scoring package. The scariest part was that he was actually only getting better with experience. Jordan could out-jump, out-maneuver, and outperform just about anyone in the league, even during his rookie year, making him one of the most refreshing faces during a time when the NBA was so obsessed with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. Jordan was basically an anomaly, putting up superstar numbers as early as his rookie season. The sky was simply the limit for him, not only because he could jump higher than anyone else. But was he the best player? For the most part, he wasn't. Not yet, at least. During the middle of the 80s, the league still belonged to Magic and Larry Legend. They were the best players in the league because they carried the NBA on their shoulders. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the legendary center, was also widely considered the greatest of all time, along with the likes of Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell. For the most part, Jordan's place as one of the best players in the history of the league was yet to be established. No one even thought he would eventually become the GOAT, even though he was putting up incredible scoring numbers the league had never seen.
Trying to go one-on-one, he lost the ball.
They're stolen away, laid out for Jordan. This should be an easy 2. Kaboom!
Still, by the end of the 1986-87 season, Jordan had established himself as the best scorer in the entire NBA, averaging 37 points. The last time the league had seen scoring numbers like that was when Wilt was camping in the paint and scoring over centers a foot shorter than him. But MJ did that against tough defenders and very physical teams that weren't afraid of roughing him up and pushing him down onto the floor. But that was also the reason he was yet to find himself in the GOAT conversation. You see, Jordan was basically a one-man show who monopolized every possession and shot for the Bulls. Yes, he was putting up crazy scoring numbers, but they were all products of the fact that no one else on the team was good enough to actually take shots instead of him. A bad shot from Jordan was still a better option than a wide-open look from Gene Banks. Yeah, we know you don't even know who that guy is. But that was the reality of Jordan's situation during his early days with the Bulls. What made it worse was that opposing teams knew they could simply rough him up and give him nightmares during the playoffs. That's what the Boston Celtics and Detroit Pistons did when they acted as roadblocks to Jordan's early success. By 1987, Jordan already had the numbers to establish himself as the best player in the league. Yet, for some reason, he wasn't in the GOAT conversation just yet. Some people didn't even think he was the undisputed best player in the world because he couldn't lead his team to deep playoff runs. Individually, he was unlike any other. But because basketball is a team sport, not even the best individual player on the planet can be called the absolute best in the league. That's the reality Jordan faced during his first few seasons in the league.
Jones tipped it out to Jordan down the lane all the way. Basket, he put it in.
But it was in 1988 when he started showing signs that made people think he might be a future GOAT. What changed in 1988 was not only the box score, it was the message behind the numbers. Jordan did not just score, he guarded the best perimeter player every night. He became a menace at the point of attack, cut off driving lanes, and hunted passing angles like a cornerback. Steals turned into breakaway dunks. Blocks came from behind when big men thought they had a clean look. The league knew he could jump and score. In 1988, the league learned he could smother you on defense and still carry the offense without blinking. Doug Collins leaned into that energy. Collins ran a system that put the ball in Jordan's hands and asked everyone else to defend, cut, and crash. It was not the triangle yet, but it was raw and fast and emotional. Jordan thrived because it matched who he was, a relentless competitor who wanted to be involved in every play. Collins looked at his superstar and said, "We will go as far as you can take us." Jordan answered, "Further than you think." The roster around him began to make sense. Scottie Pippen was still green, but his length and ball handling hinted at a future partner who could relieve pressure. Horace Grant brought energy, rebounds, and a willingness to sprint the floor.
Post screen. Jordan. There's Jordan.
Charles Oakley set bone-rattling screens and protected his star. Veterans like John Paxson could space the floor. The Bulls were not a complete machine yet, and we're still figuring out who they were. But there was more talent and more purpose than in previous seasons, and that mattered. All-Star Weekend in Chicago turned the volume up. The city was buzzing. The dunk contest had history written all over it. It was Jordan against Dominique Wilkins, power against poetry, windmill against glide. MJ took off from the free throw line and hung in the air long enough to let the moment breathe. He put the ball through with style that cameras could barely catch. The crowd did the rest. Then came the All-Star game itself. Jordan filled the night with jumpers, drives, and mid-air adjustments that turned tough angles into easy bank shots. He walked away with the MVP of the game. He walked away owning the weekend in his own building. That weekend did not give him rings, but it did give him something else. It told everyone that the face of the league was shifting. During the regular season, he piled up points with ruthless consistency. 35 a night is not supposed to happen when teams plan their lives around stopping you. He still did it. He got to his spots, rose into that high release, and punished defenders who played his drive by pulling up on a dime. He lived at the rim, contorted around shot blockers, and finished through contact. When defenders sagged off, he hit the mid-range with rhythm. When they crowded him, he attacked the lane and drew fouls. He understood angles. He understood timing. He understood that 2 points is 2 points, and that the crowd is loudest when you mix force with grace. Now add the defense. Jordan picked pockets at half court and swiped digs on the block. He chased down layups and pinned shots against the glass. He played passing lanes without gambling his team out of position. He communicated, rotated, and closed possessions with rebounds. Guards feared bringing the ball up lazily because they knew a swipe from behind was coming. Wings hesitated to throw lazy skip passes because they knew he was lurking. Big men realized that a guard could climb the ladder and meet them up high. That is when the narrative changed. People saw a player who could control a game from both ends.
For the Western Stars.
Awards followed. The league named him the most valuable player, which felt obvious. Then the league named him Defensive Player of the Year, which felt like a warning to everyone else. It was not just that he won both, it was what it meant. He had become the ultimate two-way player. He did not just score more than you, he also made sure you scored less than usual. For a shooting guard to do that in an era full of bruising front courts was ridiculous. It was like a chess master who also takes your queen with a dunk. The imagination of fans stretched because a guard had rewritten what dominance could look like. Of course, this was also the first time a player won both the MVP and DPOY. It's even more amazing that a guard accomplished this feat ahead of everyone else in the league. The Bulls won 50 games and stepped into the playoffs with a real identity. Jordan still led the charge, but his teammates were not passengers. Pippen attacked the arc, defended multiple spots, and gained confidence. Grant hit open jumpers and sprinted into space. Paxson calmed possessions. Oakley set the tone physically. Chicago was still young and raw, yet it no longer felt outgunned the moment things got serious. The first round showed a team that could bend without breaking. The second round showed a truth that would define the next few years. The Pistons were the roadblock. They were big, mean, and organized. They threw bodies at Jordan, cut off his airspace, and turned the paint into a maze. They tried to wear him out. People love to talk about the Jordan rules. The idea grew out of these meetings. Trap him on the sides, push him off his line, make him pass early, hit him every time he gets airborne.
Come outside and get it. Kicked out.
Detroit plotted these details like a heist. Jordan studied the map and looked for gaps. In 1988, he did not find enough of them. He still put up wild numbers and stole quarters almost by himself, but series are marathons. The Pistons had answers and enough bodies to keep their plan fresh. Chicago exited, hurt and hungry, and Jordan carried the sting into the next season. That is the other part of 1988. It was not only a coronation, but also a class. Jordan learned that greatness requires more than ferocity. It requires patience, strategy, and the right kind of trust. He could score 50 and still watch another team celebrate. He could fly and still get bumped out of the lane. So he adjusted. He embraced the weight room and the idea that strength could be skill. He poured himself into defense even more because stops save legs as much as they save points. He nudged Pippen to keep growing. He nudged Grant to keep shooting. He began to imagine a version of the Bulls that defended first and let the offense flow from there. Off the court, 1988 reshaped his image. Tinker Hatfield helped design a shoe that matched the way he moved. Elephant print, visible air, and the Jumpman logo turned footwear into a stage. The free throw line dunk in Chicago, with that shoe on his feet, created an image you can still picture even if you've never watched the full contest. Marketing followed him, yet he still looked like a basketball player first. The product sold because the game was real. Kids copied his gait. They stuck their tongues out on driveways and imagined spinning through double teams. Style and substance met, and they both grew. If you want to see where the GOAT story begins in a way that everyone could recognize, you circle 1988. Before the titles, before the first three-peat, before the shrug, there was a season where a guard led the league in scoring and led the league in fear. Coaches spent their timeouts planning for him. Players spent their film sessions looking for any hint that he might be tired. Then he would pick you clean for a fast break dunk and grin like he had found the answer before you even knew the question.
How many moves can you have?
The craziest part is that he was still not at his final form. The post game that broke smaller guards was still developing. The fadeaway that stuck late in his career was still in the lab. His outside shot would become more consistent. His patience running a slow half-court possession would grow. Phil Jackson and the triangle would come later. Yet, the foundation was obvious. He could burst for 30 and a half, then put clamps on your best wing and ruin your spacing. He could make the right pass when the dribble came, then cut and finish when the ball returned like a boomerang. The game tilted because he tilted it. Awards are often about story. Voters love a narrative. In 1988, the narrative and the tape agreed. The best player in the league was also the best defender on the perimeter. The city that hosted All-Star Weekend watched its own superstar carry the weekend. The team that had been scrappy turned into a real contender. The playoffs delivered a lesson that would fuel the dynasty. All of it fit together like a puzzle that suddenly made sense. There is a reason that older players talk about respect. They do not hand it out for one fancy move. They hand it out when you break their plan. Jordan did that to veterans in 1988. He broke your scouting report by turning your strength into a weakness. If you sent a double, he split it. If you funneled him to size, he rose first.
Steals the ball. Here's Jordan. Oh!
If you closed his airspace, he pivoted and hit the turnaround. If you relaxed for half a second, he took the ball and the moment. The game became a test of attention, and he paid attention longer than you did. People sometimes pretend that rings alone define greatness. Rings matter, of course, but they are the result of greatness more than the proof. The proof shows up in seasons where a player bends the league around his presence. In 1988, that is what Jordan did. He bent attention, game plans, marketing, and hope. He gave Chicago a vision that it could hold on to. He gave teammates a path to follow. He gave rivals a problem that they would spend years trying to solve. Look at what came right after. The Bulls front office started thinking in terms of pieces that would fit around a two-way engine. The move for a true center arrived. The triangle arrived. The strength that he added showed up when the Pistons tried the same hits and got different results. The young wings matured and built a defense that moved as one. When the dynasty finally rolled, the memory of 1988 was sitting under everything like a cornerstone. And remember the way the league felt then: physical, territorial, and no easy baskets. You could find yourself on the floor just for stepping into the lane. For a guard to dominate that world, he needed power and poise. He had to endure. By the time the season ended, even the people who argued against him had to admit the obvious. The kid who came in as a high-flying scorer had become the best player in the world.
Just clearing and isolating Jordan. Goes in, slices the defense.
He had joined the conversation with the legends and did it his own way. No towering skyhook, no granite post frame, and no trick passes that drew cheers before the ball arrived. Instead, there was relentless pressure. There was an obsession with winning each possession in every way a perimeter player could. There was art in the air and science in his feet. So when you hear someone say that Michael Jordan became the GOAT because of the rings in the 90s, nod, but add this: the blueprint was drawn in 1988. That was the year he took total ownership of both ends of the court. That was the year he showed that an athletic guard could be the most valuable player while being the best defender on the floor. That was the year the whispers started. People started thinking maybe they were watching the best player ever during the early stages of his dominance.